What's up, folks? This is Little Guillotine. Welcome, hope you're doing well. You're tuned into another episode of The Chopping Block. Hey.
Guillotine and your neck meets beautifully.
The Chopping Block.
Today we're going to talk to you about internationalism. What is it? Why do we need it? How does it help? Let's get into it.
Okay, shall we begin?
So basically, internationalism, as it applies to revolutionary struggle in the United States, is a very important conversation to have, right?
This is an important conversation.
Back during the civil rights movements of the 1960s and the 1970s, internationalism was a pivotal component of the analysis and the movement in the day.
I swear I thought back then.
Revolutionaries realized that it was not possible to achieve anti-capitalist revolution without looking at different countries for support in the struggle.
You scratch our backs, we'll scratch yours.
And this analysis dates back to the dates of the Russian Revolution. Some of you might know that I previously used to be a Trotskyite.
I can't believe you fell for that, bro.
Before I was an anarchist, and while remaining wholeheartedly anti-sectarian to the best of my abilities, I wholeheartedly recommend anarchism over Trotskyism any day. Leon Trotsky is often credited with the analysis around the theory of international revolution. The concept that in order to establish anti-capitalist socialist revolution in any one country, we would need the support of other countries and the movements in that country in order to sustain any type of viable revolution that was to challenge the status quo, white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalist society in that country. This was a concept that was very well understood by people during the movement of the 60s and 70s civil rights movement, particularly black revolutionaries.
A revolutionary.
Many of you may heard of the theory of Pan-Africanism, the idea that African folks, whether from America or across the continent in Africa, need to unite in order to win the struggles of the African American peoples and the African peoples against the racist status quo that exists in those societies. Some of you may have been exposed to racist ideas coming from the leadership in Marxist-Leninist, Trotskyite, and Stalinist organizations. And indeed, when I was a young Trotskyite, I was exposed to ideas coming from the leadership that Pan-Africanism and Black nationalism were equivalent to segregationist ideas, a concept that is extremely sectarian and quite colonial on its face.
We can't have that here.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
And yes, the Politburo and the Central Committees used to tell us that we should not organize with Black nationalist and Pan-Africanist. These are, of course, white ideas that dismiss the struggles of black folks under capitalism in the United States today, because self-determination and decolonization should be central in the struggle against capitalism. No, contrary to the belief of the Politburo and the National Committee, we need to definitely have a Pan-Africanist, Black nationalist, global perspective to revolutionary anti-capitalism in order to achieve the struggles that we pursue. We need to have a global perspective when it comes to overthrowing the white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalist status quo.
Destroying the status quo, because the status is not quo.
For it is across many nations that we gain much power in the struggles. We need not to entertain notions of nationalism that become apparent in the slogans of Buy Local and Buy American, as if concentrating on supporting only the workers that live within the borders of the United States is somehow superior to having an internationalist, intersectional, working class perspective. It is not. And we dismiss the idea ideas of buy locally that many liberal progressives put forward as cogent ways to achieve social change. No, we need to be in solidarity with our international working class comrades in China, in Venezuela, and all around the world. For it is only by tearing down borders and uniting with the international working class that we will achieve anti-capitalist revolution in the world today.
The anti-capitalist agenda.
And we dismiss the Politburo and the national committee's ideas of staying away from Pan-Africanist and Black nationalist organizers and struggles, because it is only through supporting these struggles that we will achieve anti-capitalist revolution. For white folks, liberation is tied up in the liberation of those who are most oppressed in society. By putting forth an ideology of internationalism that is not to play into the ideas of Stalinist, Maoist, and Marxist-Leninist organization that purport that an enemy of our enemy is our friend. And so you'll see Stalinists who are supporting dictators like Assad
Is a puppet working with them to support the dictator.
simply because they are fighting against American imperialism in Syria. No, we do not support dictators and despots, but rather we support the struggles of the international working class, especially intersectional ones that are fighting against colonization and racism in their countries. Black revolutionaries
A revolutionary.
during the civil rights movement of the 50s, 60s, and 70s understood this international perspective and how it can uplift and reinforce and strengthen the anti-capitalist, anti-racist movements in the United States. Take, for instance, Robert F. Williams, one of my favorite figures in history and someone that I look up to very dearly in the struggles.
Oh, he's my favorite.
Robert F. Williams was one of the first people to advocate for armed self-defense against racist capitalism and its inherent violent tendencies in the United States. Robert F. Williams, because of his international perspective, was exiled to Cuba and later to China. And of course, Assata Shakur, member of the Black Liberation Army, was exiled to Cuba, who many believe is still alive today in Cuba. I voted for Assata Shakur as vice president this last election, actually. Assata Shakur understood the international aspect of anti-capitalist, anti-racist revolution. It looked to comrades in Cuba to support her in her exile against state repression and oppression of the capitalist, white supremacist, patriarchal system here in the United States. Eldridge Cleaver, despite his problematic ideas around sexual assault, was exiled to Cuba and then Algeria.
Informationsminister Eldridge Cleaver befinner sig I landsflykt I Algeriet.
And then France. Stokely Carmichael, later known as Kwame Ture, after organizing Black revolutionary anti-capitalist leader in Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, was exiled to Ghana and then later to Guinea. Black feminist, anti-capitalist revolutionary Claudia Jones, who spoke brilliantly on involving black women in the anti-capitalist struggle in the United States, was exiled to the United Kingdom herself. W.E.B. Du Bois, who is seen as a pivotal figure on anti-capitalist, anti-racist theory here in the United States.
At the time, he was a powerhouse.
Was himself exiled to Ghana, where he later died. And one of my favorite black feminist revolutionaries, Ida B. Wells, the anti-lynching newspaper woman who you can hear me talk about in my audiobook of Angela Davis's Women, Race, and Class, was herself exiled to the United Kingdom. And so we see history shows that black revolutionaries during the civil rights movements of the 50s, 60s, and 70s understood very well the importance of relying and receiving support from sympathetic international anti-capitalist countries in order to support the anti-capitalist movements in the United States. And in conclusion, anti-capitalist struggles in the United States need to gain an international perspective in order to be successful.
If we don't do something soon, we f***ing die!
And we look to black leaders of the civil rights movement for inspiration. Well, that's it, y'all. Let me know if you have questions about the theories that I've put out here, if you disagree or if you agree in the comments. Make sure you like the video and be sure to smash that subscribe button so you can stay tuned to new videos coming out. All right, y'all. Peace out.